Hi everyone, welcome to Ruby Rose Tarot. This is the podcast, and I've already hinted at and alluded to me bringing on a very special person who I've been working with very, very closely over the past few weeks. And she's my ear. She's also called Noah. So, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, everyone. My name is Naseret Bawa. My Ifa name is Oshun Ololodi Oremian, and I am a practicing Iyawo, which means that there are certain things within Ifa that I can do, and then the big Ocha, the haircut. That's when you can start bringing on, and you can open up an Ile. So right now, I say that I am more of a spiritual mentor to people that want to, number one, decolonize their consciousness and re-indigenize their heart. It has to be really a co-cycle that you have to do. You have to decolonize all of that past belief system that you have going through you, and then you have to reconnect with the indigenous parts of your spirit. And so if I had to sum up in a sentence of what I do, that's what I do. I help you bring you back to your roots, baby. Yes.
That I can attest to. So quick backstory in relation to myself. So obviously this session we're going to be touching on Ifa, which you've already mentioned. As we're going to be touching on Ifa, NASA, she does quite a lot of other areas as well, which we'll be covering off, including spirituality, which she's already highlighted, ancestral healing, soul contracts as well, that you do. And you also have some quite, to be honest, I think it was quite insightful insights into the twin flame and the twin flame journey as well, which hopefully we'll be able to touch on in this session. But I met NASA whilst going through my own spiritual journey. So all of us reach that point where we're questioning where we're going, what direction we want to go in. And I decided to go down the African divination route. And I had my Odus done, and I had so many questions off the back of that. No one really with clear, concise answers, and I feel that my ancestors led me to NASA, who one of her videos completely blew me away in terms of the explanation for what was divined for me. And since then, I've not looked back. I've been bothering you consistently in terms of messaging. But yeah, I feel that there's a lot that you will be able to impart to my subscribers or anyone that is watching that's interested in African spirituality generally, and everything that sits around that. So
I want to talk about that before we get too far, Michelle, because I do believe that in the Ifa community with diviners, especially here, well, I'm not even going to say in the West, because I don't not really consider, but there is a mentality that happens in your society that definitely drives from what happens in the States. And so what I've seen is that because practitioners do not fully understand what Ifa is for, which is the 16 values, which we'll be talking about, and they don't understand Odu. A practitioner should not, like, it breaks my heart that so many people, they have Ifa divination readings and walk away. You should never walk away from a divination.
I agree.
Fusion. The Iya or the Baba that is throwing down the shells and giving you that prescription should be able to tell you what it means for you. They should be able to tell you what it bows. They should be giving you follow up. And I do see that a lot, that there's a rush, because if I hear people like to stand on their, I have this, and I have a hand of Ifa, and I have this and that.
I agree.
I want everyone to know that that's none of my business, because actually all of those, everybody does not have to take the same initiations. Okay, it is based off of what needs to be elevated in you so that you can be of service, so we have a lot of practitioners who don't understand Odu. They don't understand what the marks mean, how to help people. And so I would say that if you do sit down with a diviner, do not leave that diviner until they have given you everything you need to know, giving you the prescription, giving you the ebo, giving you the follow-up work with your ancestors and your Orisha. And so if that is not happening for you,
Yeah.
then get you another diviner.
I know. So I know we've talked in length about this, but I think for many of you, some of you may have already experienced this, where you have either been significantly overcharged, which does happen, for divination, or as in my case, where there wasn't sufficient information provided, so you walked away probably more confused than you were before you even had the divination in the first instance. So I definitely agree with you. It's quite difficult, isn't it? Especially for those who are very, very, very new to the tradition, to understand, one, what that even looks like, what that divination looks like in the first instance. Because both of us do tarot. So those of you who are on this channel know that I'm a tarot reader. You yourself as well, you do tarot, don't you, Nasa? So it's a very different type of divination, but it is very, very on the nose. It's very on the nose, and it tells you exactly what it is that you need to do. But like you said, that I think the diviner needs to, one, identify, because of, I think, I can't remember whether you've actually touched on how many Odus there are. I think, is there
There's
250?
256 Odu that are a combination of 16 marks. And so each of those 16 marks interact with each other. They interact with themselves in what we would call a Meji sequence, which means when that Odu falls in both places, and then when they match up. And, you know, I will say this, Odu is very similar to tarot, and I am actually creating a deck now. I have a meeting after this where I'm creating a deck that is going to be a hybrid of Odu and tarot. Here's why. Just like Odu, Odu is for life. It is for how you handle life situations. Now, I would liken that to like the minor arcana in tarot, because the minor arcana is the life situations, right? The courts of
Yeah,
nature.
yeah,
They're all about archetypes and, you know, personalities. Whereas that minor, that's in there, honey. That's that day to day. And this is what Odu represents. So yes, there are 16 marks, and
yeah,
those 16 marks can come into relationship with each other. And really, my love, Odus are always evolving. You know, there are more than 256. The missionaries wrote down Odu, and I'm of the really the mindset in the school that once something becomes written, it devalues it,
yeah,
because now what you have is people who are, Odu is a download. Our ancestors downloaded that information. The missionaries, we don't want to talk about that a lot in Ifa, but the missionaries went down and wrote those Odus. And now we're coming into this mindset of like, okay, I have to memorize these Odus. I memorize them because it's a part of Ocha. You have to do that. That's just what you have to do. But
yeah,
when I am divining, I lean on what the marks say, not someone else's interpretation of the marks. You can look into Awo Salami. He has Odu representation. I don't know. I don't have his book right in reach with me. And Jesus is in those Odu.
yeah,
So you're just like, we have to really be smart and understand that these marks were never supposed to be written down. They were supposed to be
verbal,
understood and then verbally communicated
agree.
through the diviner.
Yeah,
So when I'm looking at these odus, yes, I do have some understanding of what the interpretations are, but there's several interpretations of one odu.
I
There's
know.
so what
There's
are
a
you
lot.
memorizing? You can't memorize Odu. Odu cannot be memorized. It has to be understood. It has to be felt and then communicated. And this is fundamentally, I believe, where a lot of religion, and I know we're going to touch on that, where a lot of religion came over to this tradition and boxed it in, and it's creating a lot of psychosis even within
Yeah,
the tradition. It's creating a lot of psychosis, and people are turned off from it. And people like me and my teachers, not on our watch. We will not let Ifa become some Christian t-shirt, just something that you wear and not something that you understand and practice every day.
so I think one of the things which I learned in terms of Ifa is that yes, it's a tradition, it is a religion, but it's actually a way of life. It is how you should live your life according to the 16 core values which you mentioned earlier, which we are going to touch on so that everyone understands what the core values are. I think the equivalent is quite I think the equivalent would probably be what the Ten Commandments. Would you say? It's how those who practice Ifa or follow Ifa, should be behaving and conducting themselves. But I do agree with you that Ifa is demonized to a huge degree, actually. But I feel it's potentially based on ignorance more than anything. So people fear what they don't fully understand.
Yeah, well, it's a part of the conditioning. This is
Yeah.
something that I'm going to heavily touch on the new show, Decolonizing the Wisdom of Your Ancestors. Because what colonization has done from when we came over to the ports, they understood. The colonizers never threw away their ancestry. They never did that. If you ask colonizers, they can tell you who their daddies are, and they revere that. They speak about that shit with a sense of pride, Ashe. And so then when we come, because they know how powerful that is to be connected to your, not even understanding it the way we understand ancestry now, which I'll explain, because now it's like it's asinine to not work with your ancestors when you
Yeah.
understand what I'm about to explain in a minute. But it was systematic. And of course, it was evil to the colonizers. Hell, these types of traditions stop wars. Voodoo, which is, and I wholly believe, which is a part of Ifa, and some will tell you that tradition. And most Ifa practitioners that are deep into it, voodoo is just waiting there for you, like, hey, let's get it. And we know that these traditions stopped wars. Okay,
Yeah.
the when our mothers were on the plantation and they understood how to use these roots, they were not touched by the master. They were, or these colonizers, they did not have that same oppression. And the colonizers feared root workers. They feared that, and they should. Because when you are coming from an evil sense of like reclaiming, spirit is always going to be on the side of righteousness. So they had to demonize it. And it was bad to them. The mothers and fathers in the back throwing down roots, and all of a sudden now the colonizer's son is sick. I understand why they
Yeah.
called that evil, but we didn't want to use that. It's defending ourselves.
Protection, isn't it?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
protection. It was protection for us. So they had to demonize it. And then on top of demonizing it, then they punished us for doing it. So then you have a whole condition, especially I would say the second generations coming into slavery, right? So now
Yeah.
they're born into this conditioning, because now we know about epigenetics and transgenerational epigenetics. Everybody study this. Okay, Ruby Rose Tarot audience, please study this. Transgenerational epigenetics. Nobody has studied this in the African, but what they studied in the Holocaust survivors, because you know they think us African, we just crazy and we out here wilding for no reason, right? But
Yeah.
the Holocaust, let's go ahead and study their descendants. Okay, that's fine. Science is science. So Dr. Joy DeGruy took this same type of transgenerational epigenetic studies and applied it in her book, Post-Traumatic Slavery Disorder, right?
Yeah.
These second generations, I would say, babies within the diaspora, they are born with that womb energy of fear. So now I have a new conditioning of fear in that second generation that I did not have before. All the
Yeah.
pitting against each other, all the evilness, I didn't have that before. And now I'm watching that with this generational consciousness and saying, well, I don't want this shit to happen to me. So then they start hiding it. And that then creates all of this cloak. Next thing you know, it's secretive, it's mystical, it's evil. And we're continuing that type of consciousness. And that's what you and I are here to do, to say that these were our ways. These
Yeah.
were the ways that we prospered. These are the ways that we stayed out of economics, which actually separates people into castes. Okay,
Yeah.
we shared with one another. We revered the woman as the portal here, right? We
Exactly.
revered the father as the provider, and we weren't warring against one another. So we only really need to look at our lives and how we began to prosper before the energy of colonialism hit us. And I say the energy because the energy hit us before the people did. Okay.
Yeah.
We were starting to already get into these scarcity mindsets. Okay. And so when we started getting into the scarcity mindset, that left an opening for that colonizer to come in and begin to divide us. So how do we make our way back? We'll talk about that today.
Well, yeah, we'll go into a lot more detail into that. So, could you tell us a little bit, Asa, about yourself and what led you? So, obviously, you've done quite a lot of extensive research into this, amongst other things, which we are going to touch upon. But what led you down the spirituality path and down Ifa in particular? What led you to it?
Well, I always say that your ancestors lead you to your tradition. So I would say if anyone is lost, start there, because there's no way I would have gotten here without, those ancestors that live within inside my DNA code. And it really started, I grew up in a church in the apostolic tradition, which I feel as though is one of the most oppressive versions of religion, of Christianity, because in my church, you were ostracized if you didn't follow a certain type of path. Women had to wear skirts. They couldn't wear makeup. They couldn't cut their hair. It was very cultish a little bit. Like in
Yeah.
my town, you always knew who went to my church because they had a certain type of look and a certain type of language there. And so I grew up in that, and my grandmother, who embraced that fully, she had a little bit of rebel in her, right? She was like, I might not wear pants, but I'm gonna wear some culottes. The first time a church member saw her, I was
I was
like,
going to say, I can imagine.
for that, what are culottes, y'all? Culottes are they're basically bolero shorts, they're wide leg shorts or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, my grandmother was ostracized. She was ostracized, but she was so strong in herself that she was like, this is my church. I don't care. She had to give up some of her duties. She couldn't be usher anymore. She was basically downgraded. And so my subconscious is watching all of this, right? I'm as a little girl, I'm watching this ostracized. And there's something about the faith that resonated with me deeply. But at the same time, I just was like, I don't really want to have anything to do with this. So when I left into college, I was like, this is some BS. I don't want nothing to do with this. I denounced this fully. And then I started going to a local church in Atlanta and got fired up again. But I still felt deeply unfulfilled. I still felt very lost. And then I just was out floating. I was floating, and it was, I was becoming sicker. I had was 265 pounds. I was in a unhappy marriage. My hair was falling out. And I remember sitting at my house in the middle of a pile of clothes and just really saying, I'm gonna either have to exit this life. I gotta go. I can't do this anymore, or I need help. I needed help. I can even tear up now thinking about that feeling. And I know where you are. That's why when people come to me and they're deeply hurt and they're just searching, like I
We've
I
all
I
gonna say.
I've been there. So I know what that feels like. And all of a sudden I couldn't go to sleep, right? I was waking up at 3 a.m. every single day. And I was like, why can I not go to sleep? I was smoking so much cannabis. I was just like, smoke some cannabis, let me smoke some alcohol or drink some alcohol. And usually that would put me and I could go back to sleep. But no, ma'am, no, ma'am. I couldn't, it would not, nothing was working. And so I did some research and I came across this. The first thing that came up was this article called The Witching Hour.
Yes.
Yes.
Between 3 and 5, isn't it? Three
Yes.
and 5 in the morning. Yes, I
Yes.
came across that as well.
And now, I'm not sure if you watch the energy replay or not, but now we understand with that circadian clock, that is when that melatonin is the highest. And melatonin gets an upgrade and becomes a transducer. And now you can actually download information. Now, I know that now. Back then, I thought I was crazy and something was wrong and I was highly stressed. And even this cannabis is not helping me. And then I found that that article, and I was like, well, let me just sit in it. And then it's like parts of my brain started to buzz and open up. And so then, of course, I was looking into Wicca, and that didn't really resonate with me, a bunch. And
Yeah.
then that led me to Yeye Louisa Tish, who is my EI.
Yes.
And I remember at the time seeing her in spirit immediately telling me, this was back in 2016, spirit telling me, that's going to be your teacher. And I was like, this woman, what the, whatever. I didn't understand what was happening. And so then Oshun was brought to me, and I was like, what is this Oshun? And spirit said, call your sister, who I did not know at that time was practicing Ifa. I had no idea. So I text her and I said, what do you know about Oshun? Y'all see how ancestors work, right?
Yeah, I was just about to say, yeah, I know.
Witching Hour, which introduced me to Wicca, which then introduced me to Jambalaya, which then opened up an avenue for Oshun. And my sister said, what you know about Oshun? I was like, I don't know anything. Turns out she introduced me to her EI that she was under, and that is how I came through the door of Ifa. I started in Lukumi under my sister's. She's not an EI Nifa. She is she's a not an EI Wo. She's in between those two statuses. And she, Nifa is usually somebody for you guys. Nifa is someone that actually divines with Odu, which is why some people don't really believe that you can do that in in very patriarchal
Yeah.
societies.
It's usually the Babaloas, isn't it? Pretty much.
Yeah.
That but I know in Lukumi it's slightly different, where women are revered more so.
Yeah, and actually when I was brought in, that's how I was being raised. You know, Orisha are for the women, Odu is for the men, which that wasn't my destiny. My destiny is for me. I'm a preacher, I'm a minister, I'm an evangelist. My job is, and I'm a researcher. I'm not a type of person who takes in information and then just like takes that at face value. I gotta chipmunk that and find the science behind it. So to some extent, even Lukumi left me very unfulfilled because it was giving me the mystical, magical Orisha part. And while that is a part of the tradition, Odu is the structure.
Yes.
That's how you live. So spirit took me away from that. But I remember in my first Misa, and for all of you, a misa is basically when you come together as practitioners and you bring down the ancestors. It's very structured in a particular way that you do that. And so in that, ironically, the EI that was there said, you are in the right place, but you're not supposed to give up Christianity. Now, that was super shocking to me because, again, we have a conditioned based off of the King James Version of Christianity.
Yeah.
I like to say what is being practiced now is promulgated law. It is King James Version. And even Hebrew Israelites and all of these extensions of it, it's still based off of that colonistic view of the man's message. So I was like, oh, okay, fine. So I immersed myself in Ifa, but there was something that was like, well, I'm not supposed to leave this behind. Now it makes perfect sense to me, which is why I do have a podcast called Black Church, where I'm trying to wake up that Hebrew community, because the colonizers basically took Yahshua's message, and he talks about this in the Nag Hammadi. Yeshua was an Assyrian. He followed the Assyrian philosophy. What people are following today is the Pharisaic philosophy of the Hebrew tradition. And
Yeah.
so, because Yeshua was charming and he had created such a following, they needed him, but they didn't want his message. Okay. They didn't want Yeshua's message. Yeshua is very clear. The kingdom of
Mm.
heaven is in you, Yeshua says. Yeshua says, if you are looking for the kingdom outside of yourself, if you're looking in the sky, the birds will have it before you do. If you think the kingdom of God is in the ocean, the fishes will have it before you do. And so when I started to channel Yeshua, which even in the King James Version, honey, which was brought together by Paul's message. This is Paul's church that he built in that King James Version. Bible has nothing to do with Yeshua, nothing to do with Jesus. Okay, whatever you call
Yeah.
it, nothing to do with
Yeah.
him. So in there, though, Paul makes it very clear when the church was combating him, because there wasn't one Bible. There were many Bibles back then. Okay, there were many Bibles.
Versions. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Bibles that the people were reading was very different from what they were hearing in the church. Because the church was talking about domination and something outside of yourself. And then their books were telling them, but wait a minute. Yeshua said the kingdom is in us, that we are supposed to become. He is the template. The way, the truth, and the light is not for you to have him do the work. And even in Ifa, there is an Odu about the Akotri, and it talks about cast divination for the innumerable amount of trees that wanted to come to do the earth. They were asked to do Ebo, but they didn't want to do it. They hired a representative to do it. And then when they came down to earth, they attacked the representative and did not do it. Okay, this is
Yeah.
what is actually happening, because Yeshua's message is not in the King James Version. So now that I studied that, I channel Yeshua. Yeshua sends me to the real books that are part of his message with anybody that wants to maintain a strong relationship with Yahshua, I would strongly urge you to look in the Dead Sea Scrolls, to be able to read the Nag Hammadi, the Naghamadi, the Nag Hammadi, and also the Book of Mary. Okay. That is where you will see the real message of Yahshua and break away from the colonizers' version of the tradition. Also, read the Torah, the Ketuvim. You have to read, those are the books that Yahshua taught out of. So if you want to know, you don't even have to read the Greek New Testament. Open the Torah, open it. And actually, in the Torah, Michelle, you will see where Moses talked about what was going to happen in the tribe. We even had a slave Bible. They even edited down even more and gave the slaves a re-edited version of their version.
I think that's the problem. I'll be honest. I think it, on a personal note, similar to you, going to church. Really, it's that belief in source. It's that faith in there being something outside, bigger than outside of myself. But it didn't
That's what causes
feel.
psychosis, Michelle, because
I
everybody
know.
for something external to make them feel better.
But they're not finding that healing though. So they'll jump from religion to religion. Well, we're going to come on to what your teachings in a second. But I think what was really interesting for me, what you said, it's quite profound in that there are different versions, different interpretations, different ways of looking at things. What I'd also learned along my travels is that there was books that were omitted, like the Book of Thomas, for instance, and there's the Book of Enoch. There's a lot of what I would term, to me on a personal level, as being smoke and mirrors, which made me feel very uncomfortable with it. So I couldn't. So as much as the faith element I was definitely down with, I think it was just finding something that sat that sat right with my core, my belief, my moral compass, etc., etc. But yeah, there's a lot of mixed messages. And for those of you who are watching, I've made a note of your, the books and the Torah that you suggested. So I'll add these to the link so that if you want to go and have a look at these, you can have a look at them.
Yes, spend
But
time in Deuteronomy and read the Torah, and spend time in Deuteronomy chapters 27 through 30. If you read those chapters, you will see the whole slavery experience being described. And I even talked about this on Black Church, and I read this. It's very important for people to really understand that Yahshua, first of all, a lot of what is said about him, he denounced. He did not want that, number one. And number two, we also have to realize that many of the people who wrote these scriptures study in Egypt, right? And so they were looking at the Osiris story as far as the risen one. If you go look at the Osiris story, that was way before Yahshua was even thought about being born, right?
yeah,
As far as the 3D is concerned, this story of Christ, mess. Christ is the process of the rebirth of the king within the chamber. And when they rose the king up in his new form within the sarcophagus, they said, oh, the king has risen. The Christ, that's what that was. When we talk about mess, that is from the word messianic, which is the cycle of rebirth that is necessary for you to come up with a Christ consciousness. This is on the walls of the pyramid, I'll
I was
say.
gonna say,
It's so it doesn't, you really need, if any person that is stuck within this King James propagated, first of all, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John did not write Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We don't even know who wrote those books. They got
Agreed.
much of it from the Nag Hammadi and the Dead Sea Scrolls. I think on my website even have the percentages in each book that they got from these texts. So even the way that the books are placed in the Bible to give people the interpretation that this person wrote this way, it's all propaganda. And the man, Nashe, that was the head of the council, William something or other, the church roasted his ass and burned his ass. I think they beheaded or burned him. So you have to ask yourself, the very person that was in charge of putting this King James propaganda together, why did they kill that man?
Get rid of him. There's a
So
lot of unanswered
a
questions.
lot of
I
history to
agree.
it.
I
But
agree.
through my study there, what I said, here's what I said. I was like, look, this is too, I can't even teach out of this anymore. Like there was a point where I have an episode that says why I can't teach out of the King James anymore. I can't teach out of it. I use it as a history reference, but I teach out of the other ancient text, and I teach what Yahshua downloaded. People, and then we can move off Christianity. People don't understand that even Paul, who put to, if you ask people who came up with this church system that we have right now, they might tell you that Yahshua did. Yahshua had nothing to do with this church system. This church system was built by Saul of Tarsus, who all of a sudden, who was alive when Yahshua was alive, and then 30 years after he died, now all of a sudden you have a Damascus experience. No, you didn't have a Damascus experience, player. What you had is a revelation that if you really wanted to be able to promulgate law, you were going to have to use this man's name to do it. So he says in what scripture is it? In one of the scriptures, I have all of this stuff on my website. Paul talks about I came through this, no man taught me this message. I downloaded this message from Yahshua, from Jesus. And if you can't hear him to know the truth, you are counterfeit. This man said this. And the whole race right now of Christian followers don't even follow their own law because they're not talking to Yahshua themselves, which Paul himself said, you are counterfeit if you cannot hear this man's words. So everything that Paul came up, he says himself, no man taught me this. So that means that he was not going off of the Hebrew tenets. Even Yahshua was not that arrogant. Yahshua taught, he taught the Torah. He taught Hebrew science, and then went through a 3-year initiation. When he was getting dunked, he was not getting baptized. It was a part of a ritual of initiation, showing that the man had mastered Essene philosophies. He had learned to walk on water, which he was not the only person doing that. If you look in history, there were, and most women could do that at that time. It was very, most women was already walking on water and doing things like that. Being able to alchemize the elements, turning water into wine. They, at that time, called Yahshua a sorcerer. So you think I give a high flying hell to somebody call me a witch? That's the same thing he did to Yahshua. So as far as I'm in good company, Yashe.
Ashe.
I bring these two traditions together, along with some Hindu, along with a little Buddhism, because it is all a part of the larger
One. I
story.
agree. I agree. We've had several conversations around it. So obviously you've got your different traditions within Ifa, but then we were talking about the leanings from astrology, the different types of astrological impacts, different religions. But I do feel that it's all part of one in essence, and it's not a case of hanging your hat or relying on one particular system. It's all systems used collectively or collegiately as, you know, as one, which is where you're going to find your most enlightenment. So
That's part of like the re-indigenizing, because our ancestors before colonialism, they really did lean on all of it. They leaned on nature. Nature is very diverse. Humans, because we have this innate need for people to agree with us, right? I was watching this I'm not going to go into that. We I would say for whomever is watching, my best advice to you is to cease validation. Even you and I, when you and it's
Agreed.
like, well, is this okay? I'll be like, yes, if your ancestors told you to do it, yes, it's okay. Now I'm here to offer a guide, and I may say, oh well, here's da 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 da. But as a teacher, I'm not here to turn you into a NASA. That's not what's happening here. What I'm here is reminding you of who you are. And so, yes, when you get an urge and a spirit to do something, you should go and do that. And then you can talk to your EI. That's how I do, and that's how Yeye and even Baba Shola have always been with me. My teachers have always been like that. Go, baby, go. If you run into something, check in. Like my first EI, she was to the point where she was like, if you do anything outside of what I tell you to do and you run into some trouble, I'm not going to help you. Like that's
It's
just
not helpful, is it?
no, that it never resonated with me because it teaches you how to be an EFI drone, and then you are not connected to EFI because all of us have our own Ori. We all have our own consciousness, and we're all here to do something individual. And so if we don't individualize, we'll never get to wholeness. We'll never get to wholeness if you first don't become whole within yourself, which means that you get a mentor that you trust and leave all the other shit behind. You know, I'm a big component. Don't ask people for advice. And
Yeah,
I tell y'all in the membership, right? Ancestral Healing
I
Stuff,
know you do.
give advice. I don't do that because sometimes I'll be like, oh shit. And ancestors be like, not for this person. This person needs to do this. And when I learned that, that's when I feel like my ministry began to grow, when I took a back seat to how I live my life and more start channeling what is the right person, what is the right thing for this
That
person.
person. I agree. I mean, everyone, again, I think for many people, they won't know what Ori is. So, do you want to quickly tell people what Ori is, and the importance that is placed on your Ori?
Oh my God. I exploding. Ori is my favorite topic because it is a part of why I am here. You know, I am here to and is why also I can't throw away Christianity because I come from Christian myth. Like I
We
told you,
same.
I come from the archangel realm. That's where I come from. So that's why I couldn't, that's why that came down. I have to bring in both of that. But I am here at this appointed time because this realm in 3D, not all realms operate like this, okay? But in this realm, this is a realm of consciousness. And so that is what the concept of Ori is. So everybody gets one Ori. That means no matter how many lifetimes you have lived, no matter how many bodies you lived in, how many avatars, I call them, how many spaceships you've driven down here in the 3D, we have this HBIC, this head brain in charge, okay?
Yeah,
And so Ori is the bowl of all of your experiences that you can be able to draw on in this life. There is a pataki and Defy that talks about as we come down to earth, the Ajogun steals a part of our memories, right?
yeah,
Yes, what they don't steal it, they suppress it a little bit. And so our job here is to return to wholeness. So that's why racism will keep you away from wholeness, because everybody on this earth has been something. Everybody's been white, everybody's been black, everybody's been a woman, everybody's been a man. And I know for some E5 practitioners that goes against what is said, because what is said is that you reincarnate through your own bloodline. But lest we forget, we all come from one woman.
yeah.
Okay, we all come from mitochondrial Eve. All woman comes from one woman, and all men come from those women. We don't need to argue about that anymore. We don't need to talk about that anymore. It's in the Nag Hammadi. When you read the Genesis story in the Nag Hammadi, it talks about how Sophia, which is wisdom, came down in a physical form, and how her husband in heaven, her twin flame, Ashe, okay?
Yeah.
Talk about that. Her
Yeah.
twin flame became jealous because she came down here and became impregnated without him. And that is what started the gender war. But it was never supposed to be like that. So when we talk about us all coming from or coming through one bloodline, we've all been everything. So when you are racist against women, when you are race or sexist, when you are looking at other white people, I love the fact that my white audience is growing. I love that because it challenges the status quo, because we all need to get out of form. This is something
Yeah.
Yahshua says. Yahshua says you guys you're addicted to suffering because you are attached to form. You are
Yes.
attached to form. And so a part of what we have to do to return ourselves to wholeness is see ourselves as everything. I mourn for the strawberries that I let die in my refrigerator because I'm like, I didn't let you come to your purpose. Damn it.
I, I agree with that wholeheartedly. For me, it was my blueberries. So,
I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. How can I save you? So that when you see yourself connected to everything and see yourself as a part of everything, you treat everything. I don't need to learn these 16 core values, right? I don't need to learn them. They are me. And when I work myself back to wholeness and I see myself as the sky, as the tree, as the animals, as my other fellow brothers and sisters, there's a wholeness that comes and separation begins to dissipate away. And then you're like, that's what it feels like to be whole. It's good. It's good over here.
so, touching on your point about nature, so a lot of people find out about Ifa through the Orishas, and I know that there's a lot of the Gen Z generation and some millennials who found out mainly through the likes of Beyonce about Oshun. So she's probably one of the most famous Orishas that many people know. But could you touch on, because I know that the Orishas themselves, they do represent nature. So do you want to touch a little bit on that so that people can understand who the Orishas are?
Yes, and I think that's such a lovely sentiment. First of all, Oshun is the first Orisha that most people come with. It's by design. That's how it's supposed to be,
Yeah.
because she is the most beautiful, she's the kindest, she is love. And so love has to be at the center. That's why when I'm dealing with other practitioners and I don't see the love, I don't even feel the need to I'm like, I respect the Orisha in you, but I'm not prostrating. I'm not going to do most of that stuff because I know you're not operating from the sense of love. So this is why this is the Orisha that first come out. But yes, there is a pervasive thought that you cannot work with the Orishas unless you are initiated. First of all, let's be very clear. There's several initiations within Ifa, okay? Now, when you go to Ocha or you take your final initiation, they don't call Ocha that in every sect. When you take that final initiation, that's very helpful. That's why you have people to take Ocha who don't know anything because they think, oh, blah, 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 blah. That's not how it works. There's several different initiations. If you are not initiated, you have no elekes, you don't have anything, you can still work with the Orisha, not for the Orisha. Okay,
Yeah.
there's a difference. I can work with them, but when you work for them, these elevations are there to protect you because you're dibbling and dabbling and you're dealing with some crazy energies, because all Orisha have two sides. Okay, the Orisha are the forces of nature, period, hands down, la 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 la. I even saw this one EI who was making this post and said that yes, if you don't have your initiation, if you're not initiated, which again is what does that mean? You don't even know what that, most people don't even know what that means to be initiated. Okay, You can work with the river, but don't call her Oshun. That's the most asinine, ignorant, disconnected philosophy I've ever heard in my life. Why would Oshun not want you to call her name? Why? That doesn't make any sense. So when you
Yeah, she's the Orisha of the river, isn't she, as
yes,
well? It's just, yeah, I agree.
yes, rivers and creeks. And so when you go to that river and creek and you are a person that she has come to you, people that go to the river that don't call Oshun's name because they don't know her. So if she has presented to you and you go to that river and you don't call her name, yo, is she gonna be looking at you like, I came to you, I gave you my name. There's power in that name, Oshun. It's, and when you break down, it's Ori Yeye
Yeah,
O.
yeah,
It is again the sweetness. It is mind heart coherence when you're saying that prayer. Okay, so even her name is not her name, it's a prayer, Ashe. So you have rivers and creeks that are representative of Oshun to be able to show us the fluidity that we are to have within our blood system. She is our blood system. That is how rivers flow, and they break down with steady force, honey. She ain't coming in there knocking you down like Shango and Oya, right? She just going and slow with her pushes. You gonna move out of her way. That's what Oshun is teaching us through watching the river. Our ancestors looked at the river. They were able to drink from the river like sweet honey. This water fulfills me and gives me life. That's what Oshun represents. Okay. Then we have Shango. He is the thunder. He's the lightning. He's passion because that's fire energy. Shango is the electromagnetic energy. If you look at a cell, right, you will
yeah.
see thunderbolts happening all within that cell. That is Shango energy, Ashe. We're supposed to understand and harness that. We have the ocean, Yemoya and Olokun. They
Yeah.
are birth, the bottom subconscious of which all life is made, and then the top part of the ocean, Yemoya, which life comes out of. She's representative of the womb. So when we study these two parts of the ocean, we can more understand Yemoya that lies within our womb area. So we must look at these Orisha as the forces of nature. There's a Baba Lao who has went over to the ancestral realm. His name is Baba Lloyd Weaver. He has lots of books and probably has lots of videos on YouTube. I was fortunate to meet him when in the original Elay that I was in. And one of the Babalaos there was like, these Orisha, these people are taking the Orisha and change. Now you see Asian Oshuns and you see white Oshuns and he was pissed off, okay? And Baba Lloyd just so eloquently was like, the Orisha do what they want to
I
do.
was going to say they can basically take, well, when I say take
Never
someone's
more.
head, it's anyone. It's based on your character, so it's everyone, and especially with the nature aspect of nature applies to everyone. We need that nature. It's in, yeah, exactly. So it does make me laugh when a lot of people basically say, no, 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 the Orishas are just for the indigenous people. It's just for, no, not necessarily.
This is for everybody. And keep in mind, we're all indigenous people, okay? Let's not
Yeah.
get that twisted. Even if
Yes,
you are
agreed.
connected, the Europeans have indigenous cultures that they also themselves walked away from. And let's not forget, we all came from the motherland. We all came from the continent, from one woman. This is still, I don't even argue with people anymore, because even science tells us now the migration, the reason why this group of people turned colors is because of the climate. When they came out and went into the mountains, it was cold there. They didn't need melanate. It's really it was a gene evolution, but we don't ask ourselves why. And now I'm not even gonna break, because that alone,
I was going to
why? honey, you just need to look at yin and yang, right? We didn't get the assignment right as spiritual people, okay? As spiritual people, we were so there were two times in histories where the Caucasians, the evolved, the African, I would say the evolved African or devolved, if however you want to look at it, we came together again with cavemen. Okay, so that was our first kind of like reintroduction to one another. Things seemed to be fine then. We were very indigenous, so we mixed in, and that was fine. Little
Yeah.
babies started coming out being albino, and then the race started doing all kind of things, which is why we have all of these different shades and eyes and all this other kind of stuff started to happen. But then we had another opportunity when the colonizers came to West Africa. I want everybody to look at the energy of things. West is the emotions, West is the heart. Okay. So they went to the place where the heart of the people were. We were supposed to come together and re-indigenize that culture, bring them back to spiritual living. But we got a little too off of the shine. And even in the Torah, Moses says that. He says, those strangers in the midst, they was right there outside the camp when Moses was talking to the 12 tribes, which part of us were there. Ephi was there, okay? And start talking about, if you listen to those people, if you leave the ways of God for this technology that they're bringing you, he said they're going to take you to lands, they're going to make a fool of you. He said your heads will be like brass. What does that mean? Joe Dispenza talks about this now. He talks about how your mind becomes thick when your energy centers are cut off, and you're cut off from he calls it the quantum field. Quantum field is what we call God, or wherever you want to call it. When we're detached from the quantum, it's because we have a thickness that was created. Yahshua or Moses talked about this in the Torah. He said,
Is it over the pineal
yeah,
gland? Yeah.
girl, let me tell you something. The pineal, if you look at the limbic system, you taking me all, girl. I love it.
Yes.
When you
Sorry.
look at the limbic system, and I'm going to send you this, and I think you have it from energy class, okay, where I broke down the
You
eye
did.
of Horus and the eye of Ra is in the very same shape as the limbic system, which your pineal gland and your pituitary gland live. The pineal gland is responsible for bringing in, keeping you on the circadian rhythm. When light comes, serotonin hits. When light becomes decreases, melatonin begins to decrease. This is what allows you to have psychic powers, because when that pineal gland releases melatonin through an enlightened energy center, it activates little tiny crystals that are in the pineal gland. We have little tiny crystals in our pineal gland that
Yeah.
collect us to the magnetic field. Now, animals have this too. This is how they know where to fly and how to fly, because they're not bogged down by consciousness, right? They're in their instinct, and those crystals in their brain are connecting them to the field and guiding them where they need to go. We have that as well. So when we have thick skulls and we're not connected to the energy field through spiritual practices, understanding your energy system, understanding what's going on around you, what happens is that, and eating poor food, what happens is the pineal gland becomes calcified.
Yeah.
And this is also why the jibby jab or whatever will go ahead and start messing with that pineal gland to separate you. When your pineal gland is off, those crystallines are not firing, what happens now, your pituitary gland, it starts taking those interpretations and spews out hormones within your body that causes you to react this way. Honey, you know, I tell people we don't live in a magical world. We are magical. The only reason why we believe in magic is because we're disconnected from the science. That's all. We're disconnected from the science of how our body operates, of why. So that limbic system is your real system. It talks to your heart, it talks to your gut through the vagus nerve that runs through your body. Okay, so you got to have gut intelligence, you got to have primary heart
I was
intelligence.
going to touch on this. So I watched one of your videos, which I think is on it is on YouTube here on YouTube, and I've put the link for everyone in the description box below as well. You talk about, so obviously spirituality. We talk about the chakra system. So essentially, what you're touching on is the fact that everything ties into everything else. But here is where it's almost like it's your epicenter, isn't it?
The heart is the epicenter, and so the pineal gland makes it make sense to the body, right? So when those two are connected, because the heart communicates to the brain far more than the brain communicates to the body. We don't think that. We think as soon as the thought comes in that it's coming from our brain. But this is why we have to clear out these centers. We have to work through that ancestral trauma. We have to work through the past life trauma, the trauma that we've accumulated here, because if not, then the heart is sending out poor signals, right? So the heart sends out a signal of fear. And so then what that does is it sent it, and your heart picks up on it even before you feel it. Because your heart extends out, has the largest magnetic field around you, right? So that heart is picking up on signals within this 3D reality. When the heart is heavy, which is why my aunt tells you your heart needs to be as light as a feather, because if not, you will be putting out poor signals. So think of the heart as a filter, right? So if you have unforgiveness, anger, ancestral trauma, shit in your heart center, then when you get experiences, it's going to filter through that, and it's going to send a message to your dead pineal gland, who's not going to know what the hell's going on because it's calcified and disconnected from spirit. And then it's going to be like, I don't know what's going on, pituitary gland. And then the pituitary gland is going to then begin to release physical hormones in your body. Why does it do that? Because your body and your brain operate on two communication systems. And so the hormones are actually your body trying to interpret the language that the heart and the brain are saying, right? And so
Yeah.
that's why we have to, with ancestral trauma, in my practice, really what I'm helping people do, all I'm doing is helping y'all debride these systems and move them out of the heart so that your heart can operate clearly. And when your operate can operate clearly out of love, compassion, self-security, independence, sovereignty. I know who I am. Oh, that's when shit gets juicy, honey. That pituitary gland or pineal gland turns on, those crystals turn on, you're connected to the grid of life, and now the messages are coherent. I want love. I want love. Oh, there's love that needs to be had. Let's extend and magnetize ourselves out for love. And then what'll happen is then you'll start to attract people to teach you a lesson. That's where those soul contracts come in, right? You got
Yes.
to need to be, this is a world of experience. And because like Ram Dass, Ram Dass is, I call on him as my spiritual guide lots of times. And what Ram Dass always communicated when he was living, and he drives this in me, we are all one being in drag. So when that happens, people say, well, this person is doing this to me, and da, 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 da. Actually, what's really happening is your soul is trying to jump into somebody else, because we're 99.999% empty space. We're the perfect puppet. Even though we feel like we're a form, we're the perfect puppet
Mm.
that allows our one soul, we're just one being, to be able to say, let me show this person what they need to experience so they can move off. It's all karmic runoff. We're all cycling through. So when you understand that, you can be in the experience of life now. Life doesn't take you on these ups and down roller coasters, because you realize I'm either in a lesson or I'm receiving the blessing from the lesson that I learned. It's all
Yeah.
initiations. That's really what we're working with here. Yeah, for sure. And the Risha live within these 7 centers as well. And that tells us something. Ogun lives in the root chakra. That is to solidify you into your roots, for you to know who you are, for you to know that you can survive. Yemaya lives in the sacral. She is the creator. She's the mother. We desexualize Yemaya and make her, the big old plump mother. Honey, Yemoya stays wet, baby. Okay. Yemoya is the creative center. Then we have Shango that lives in that solar plexus to let you shine and let you be who you are unapologetically and not apologize for that shit. Oshun lives in our heart center. She lets us be able to know how we should move forward, how we should do things, be able to speak our truth. We have more Olokun or Yemoya, who lives in our throat center, that allows us to siren and speak that Ashe into existence. Eshuodara lives right here in that brain, helping you be able to make the right decisions in alignment with your heart. And then we have Obatala, that light energy that connects us to everything. So even these Orisha, we have to understand them because they live within these energy centers. Or Yah lives in the 10th chakra. I mean, all the Orisha are there.
Yeah.
So we have to clean out our systems. We have to come out of victim mentality. Life is not a bitch. You are. Okay, that's what I tell people.
Yeah. You say it straight.
Life is not a bitch. You are. You're the bitch. You're the bitch treating life as a victim. You're the bitch not being tapped and tuned into your own power.
You are a million% correct in terms of so going back to the divination and the Oldus, they really do. So you did mention the fact that similar to tarot, where it's the minor arcana, so your king of not your king, let's say the page of swords or the three of swords, the 10 of swords, etc., etc. It pulls out and draws out what is really, really important for you to take heed of during this time, whether it be good or whether it not be not so good. And like you said, a lot of it is asking you to basically turn that mirror towards yourself, or that light towards yourself, to look at certain things that are behaviors, character flaws that you have that may, because that old dude's not there for it, it doesn't transpire for no reason. It's usually a warning of something that is going to be coming down the tracks, and for you to really, really look at your behaviors, your character, etc., etc. But I've nearly lost my train of thought there.
You're right on point. And even when you look at the Odus, the what falls on the right and the left, is we have to look at that too, right?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
falls
yeah.
on the right is the situation, and what falls on the left is what you need to clear it. So Ifa is not going. I have a lot of students that are struggling because they are able to see death. They're able to see when people are going to transpire, and they have dreams, and they're struggling with that. I have more than a couple of students that are struggling with that. Part of it is we have to take the non-duality. Death is rebirth. And in Ifa, we teach that nobody can kill you unless your own Ori does. It doesn't work like that, right? So even in the most tragic of ways, and you're just like, wow, how is that even possible? Well, when we understand soul science, for instance, me, I look at my life. So my past few lives, I have been a nun. I've been in some type of monastic life. I've totally been like, I ain't doing this no more. I'm gonna go and do that. And there's a part of me that still feels like that I'm just like, and my soul is like, no, 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 no. Don't do that. What we are here now in this lifetime, I'm here to take the monastic and marry it with life, to be able to enjoy all of the fulfillment with life while I stay into my monastic lifestyle of really living for the universe and for the ancestors. So when we are able to put these pieces together to know what our experience is, everybody just needs to calm down. Really, everybody just needs to calm down You, this is not a time reality. We're not here to be judged by time. Clocks was the worst thing that we ever did. The circadian clock is how we should be living our lives, like our brothers and sisters here in nature do. If I had any advice for people, I would say find out, to your point, what you need to be working on right now. And it's
Yeah.
always an evolving thing, right? And so that's why we have to be real careful with what we are asking for. Oh, I want to not be judgmental. Okay, great. If you say that, that might not even be the very thing that's holding you back, right? You just feel like that's something that you need to work on. Well, the universe will give you, and then people fail. And they constantly fail these lessons because they don't
Yeah.
realize, well, in order for you to not be judgmental, now spirit, the universe is going to send you people that are starkly different from you to give you the opportunity to practice that. When you pay for patience, what the universe will do is it's going
Just
to
test
bother
it.
you. Come on now, come on.
Test your patience.
Right,
Yes.
that's right. And so then you under here bitching and moaning while you stuck in traffic and but meanwhile you praying for patience. No, you have to practice. This is a realm of experience. So this is why I love divination, at least the way I do it, because the way I use tarot, I don't use tarot like a lot of other people. I use tarot as a part of ancestral repair. And this is something everybody, I have a free, it's a pay what you want. So if you can't pay anything, that's fine, but it's a pay what you want course and how to uncover and reclaim your ancestors through
What we
tarot.
were going to move on to next.
Yes.
Yes.
This is because and I remember one of I call her my mentor in the Hebrew tradition. That's what I call her. And I remember she was counseling me and she was like, I don't know about those cards and I don't give paper power. Okay. That's not what's happening here. What's happening is that when you are constantly your heart is heavy, right? There are some parts that I'm unpacking that I can't channel down. And I'm not in a relationship, which we can talk about how relationships, what they're really for, right?
Yeah.
I'm not in a romantic relationship, which is your greatest opportunity to ascend. Okay. So because of that, there are parts of myself that I can't reach. I need to be triggered. Somebody needs to bring something. And what is that? That allows me to unpack it and bring it to surface. So what tarot can do for those people there's levels, right? The ancestors will first come through divination to give you some tasks, give you some initiations of things that you work with. This is
Yeah.
why to some extent I've made my just readings, I've made those kind of more expensive. Number one, I don't really love doing those because what I see, Michelle, you've had readings from me. I'm bringing these people down.
Yeah, I was going to say, I did want to touch on that as part of this conversation today. So, for those of you who are interested in looking into ancestral healing or even understanding what that is, you do a 20-minute free call just to understand what it is that you are looking for in terms of your spiritual journey, your spiritual growth. I did one of those, and then we started talking and hit it off pretty much straight away. But then I had my first ancestral healing circle session with you, where do you know how you gave the example of you didn't realize that your sister was already practicing in Ifa? It was very similar situation for myself where I'd found out about the Orishas, found out about this, that, and the other, but I hadn't pieced everything together. Then when I had the session with you, because those of you who followed me, you know that my mum passed on. Not last year. Yeah, actually, it's been just over a year since my mum has passed on. We did the ancestral session, and my mum was there and she was present as part of that ancestral session. But there was a lot about my paternal side that I didn't know a lot about. And I was, making notes, and I was looking at you thinking, I think that may well be the case. And then I walked away from that And you didn't use tarot cards. And I walked away from that to speak to my dad, who basically said, "How did she know that?" That is exactly that's exactly what happened. All of the baggage that was happening in terms of the paternal side of things, and the way that my mum presented herself in life, and the way that you described that, it was a very, very, very one insightful and very helpful. It was really healing for both myself and for the rest of the family to understand what was going on. But for those of you who are interested in ancestral healing, it's definitely worth getting 20 minutes with you, isn't it, Ia?
Yeah.
Just to
Yeah, I used to, before I really understood what I was supposed to be doing, I would treat those 20-minute sessions more like I wouldn't channel. I would more like, oh, okay, get to know that person. And what I would find is that there would be an ancestor that would be there, and I would kind of be like, this is 20 minutes, I was caught up, I think, in the business and the money of it, and showing the model of it. I don't do that anymore, because I feel as though it's still, for the people in the diaspora, it still is a leap of faith to schedule those 20 minutes. It really is a leap
yes,
of faith. It's a leap of faith. And if someone has the courage to schedule that, I'm a priest first and foremost. My mother told me this years ago. She said, stop calling what you do a business. It's a ministry. And I was like, the hell with her. I got to pay this mortgage. Okay, this is a business. But the ancestors counseled me and brought me to my knees. They took the money away. They took the money away, and they took the clients away. And I went to go work with a friend who, she was like, she has a metaphysical shop here in Atlanta. And she was like, just come and do some, because my background is in marketing. She was like, come do some marketing for me. And I took like a 6 to 7 month break away from it. And I worked with her. And then the ancestors drew me back in. And I realized, I was like, no, 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 no. So now what I do, when I have the 20 minutes, if an ancestor shows up, I'm telling it, I'm giving you what that is. And if you choose to continue with me after that, that's really none of my business. And when I started approaching that, it just really changed my life. So yeah, if you really want to learn about ancestors and you want to open up, I've not had anybody that has walked away now that I've switched that didn't leave with a nugget. And here's the thing I know, which, people say, I'm not messing with the ancestors, I'm not messing with dead people.
yeah,
First of all, there's death is a made up construct. It is a European concept. Death does not exist. And even I heard this one practitioner say that, and I heard the ancestors say to me, that's the money. And if I hear that, I'm like, okay, I'm not even going to research that shit. I'm just like, I trust myself. And he said that death is not a pact that we make with nature. It's a pact we make with our soul. And I started to think, I was like, that's interesting. And then I thought about this pataki about Oya, who she brought on death. She was forced to, Olofi forced her. Obata, Babaluaye came to her, Olofi sent Eshu to her, and she didn't want to bring upon death. But when she was finally convinced, because the people were begging for it, the people begged for it. Please, I don't want to be here like this for all this time. A, it's boring as hell.
yeah,
B, the world is getting too overpopulated and there's not enough resources. Okay. And so then Oya brought forth death, and the people rejoice. Death allows us to experience this realm. And I don't even really use those words. I like to use transition. It allows you to transition a new DNA code so you can come here and experience life different. This space-time continuum is interacting and bouncing off of our DNA code off of our chakra systems at all time. This DNA code is not going to handle the same situations as another DNA code will be able to handle that. And that makes this shit fun. It makes it fun to come down here
Yeah.
and experience this world as a black woman. It makes fun. It's fun to come down and now I'm gonna be a white woman this time. Or I'm gonna be a Hindu this time. It makes you be able to experience all those different blocks of life. Now, at this time, knowing that we are very close to the end, I have told my soul, I don't want to experience death. Let's just go ahead. I'm gonna fly off this sucker. Let me be like, okay, we just gonna fly off. And if people want to experience that, so then my soul is saying, okay, well, that means we're gonna have to clean up this eating over here. So there are some things that we have to do if we want to stay in the same body. But keep in mind that death is a gift. It's a way for us to experience. And sometimes tragic death is a way for us to iron out karma. If you killed someone in your past life, that is a soul contract that you
Yeah.
will now come into this life and experience what it is like to be killed. And so then in that next lifetime, you can bring those two together. Even Earth is doing this. I
Yeah.
saw this channeler that had this message, and I was like, and the answer was like, yes. I was like, okay. This channeler talked about how that when Earth was forming, she herself was a colonizer. She was grabbing things and bringing things to her in a violent way in order for her to become who she was. Well, all of that has to be balanced, right? Since she was a taker, she had to now experience what that
Yeah.
feels like. That karmic cycle is almost over, honey. She's almost learned all of the lessons that she needs to learn in order to balance herself. She's not even in the 3D anymore. Like if I had to say like this is Earth and this is 3D, she's like about right here, which means that that's why people are suffering so hard now because they're clinging on to the 3D. I'm clinging on to these old beliefs of what it means to live here. I'm clinging on to these old paradigms, and that shit is not working. And
Mm.
every year she's rising. Right now, she's oscillating right between 3 and 4D. 4D is the dream realm. This is why now is the time to release any old fears and go for your dreams. Do
Yeah.
what feels right. You are not here to work a raggedy ass job. You are not here to be stuck in abuse. You women, you are not here to be subjugated to someone's, patriarchal idea. That let me tell you something. Human beings are the only race on this planet that subjugates the feminine. It's the only no other race does that. No other beings do that. You don't see
Agree.
a male eagle saying, "You sit your ass down now that we," and no. When something needs to be done, get that nest and let's go. We doing this together. We are co-regents in this. So I'm glad that there are masculines that are awakening to this. But women, you are a wound man. You have the same feminine and masculine abilities that man does, even more so because you have a womb inside of you that is mimicking the earth, mimicking the darkness. Dark came before light. The
Yeah.
only reason why patriarchy exists is because we're so stuck on sight and we're basing it off of the Big Bang. Even this idea that the woman came from the man, right?
Yeah.
It's based off of reverse science. It's based off of sight. And so we saw the light and then we saw dark and then light. And even these marks tell us that, right? When things are in order, it is Oshun's mark. It is Ashe. It is the one mark and then the two mark and then the one mark and then the two mark.
Yeah.
When the sight comes before the darkness, is called Ofun, reversed head. Okay. When you believe that your beginning starts with what you see, that is the quickest way to reincarnation. It was darkness. Light came out of darkness, out of
Yes.
the dark womb out of Olodumare. That is an illusion for the black womb rainbow. Okay, the all the colors that came out of the dark womb. So, it's we just need to return to science, return to nature. We'll be okay. I have great hope. My my spirit has told me I used to be like, y'all need to get y'all shit together. La, 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 la. And spirit is like, don't, that's not what I need you for. I need you to bring hope. And I am hopeful that this message will spread. I am hopeful that we will re-indigenize our heart and return back to our loving, compassionate, kind nature. Yeah, that's who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot agree with you more in relation to that. It's trying to elevate as many people as possible, to basically take hold of their own destinies and their own characters, and to grow and evolve. Um, in terms of the, I'm just thinking, do you want to touch on a little bit more in terms of, the ancestral healing, or do you want to move more so into the soul contracts piece? Because you did touch on twin flames earlier as
The
well.
same. I love that because there really are, it's the same thing,
They
right?
are the
Um,
same, similar work.
yeah, it is, because we have to think about how we come. So Ifa has a philosophy of how this works, and it's very close to of how things really are. So this is what happens. It's source energy, right? We're all one source energy. We are all coming out of that one light, that one source light that extended out and fractaled out itself into all of these different beings. So I am source energy, you are source energy. In order to understand who I am and how I'm going to be and why source energy decided to be me, I have to have soul contracts. So I always like to tell a story. Source energy comes out and be like, I think I'll be a black woman named NASA. I'm gonna try see how that feels, so I can extend myself out. And so source energy extends out, and all of a sudden now I'm like this little energy ball, like, and I'm like, what am I doing? Well, first, my first contract is with that main source. So that main source tells me why it decided to be NASA. Okay, I want you to go to Earth One, okay, and I want you to learn this, and I want you to help people understand more of who we are, and blah 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 blah. And then I'm like, okay, that's fine, that's good, and I'm going to give you this power, I'm going to give you these abilities, da 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 da. Let's pull together. You're gonna need some DNA. This realm works on DNA, so let's pull together your next contract, which is all of the DNA parts that make you you. So then now I got to sit down with the ancestors as my source energy, right? And I'm like, well, what do I need to succeed? Well, you are going to have to transcend, because that's what this planet is for. We are coming here to transcend the limitations of the planet, which means that I first have to be limited.
Yes.
So even the trauma is there to save us. It's who we are. It's how we. So I was born into a very highly intuitive and religious bloodline. That was the first contract. Okay, she needs to be highly spiritual. She needs to be highly connected. So I came through a line of root workers and psychics. My grandmother's line, even though she may not be full aware, them is all voodoo, root workers, earth workers, planters. That's who they are. I needed that part of myself. And then my dad's line is creatives and psychics and intuitives, all on that. So that was my first contract, to bring those two forms together. So then over 11,000 people, because you have 20 generations of people that come within your DNA code, they're all giving me their limitations. Okay, well, here's an errand. Ifa says, may you complete the errand that your ancestors gave you. Okay, so then I'm making contracts with them. Okay, so mama's gonna leave me when I'm a child. That'll give me the ability to transcend those abandonment issues so I can
Issue. Yeah.
love for other people. Okay. Oh, I'm going to be born into a very critical grandmother, and that's going to raise me. That's going to give me the ability to transcend and really know who I am within those criticisms. That'll make me stronger in that area. So I'm making all of these contracts with the bloodline, what I'm going to limit. And also, well, we got to give her some shit and ability to transcend that. So then you have
Yeah.
those low ancestors who come in, that yin yang energy. So even that white and darkness, even in us, right? The part of us that are the shadows that we need to get out because our ancestors weren't able to do it. And then the light that those ancestors that did do it, that did transcend above those things. So when we are doing the first level of ancestral repair, the first thing that we're doing is discovering those contracts, even with your own line, right? Part of you had a line that has some things that need to be,
Yes,
and
it
then
did.
your mom is really good. That line has transcended. So your mom and dad even made a contract. Hey, help me get this situation cleared out.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So that first section is always about like what ancestors hitched in you and what is the greatest thing that you need to transcend. All other sessions are about, the coaching is all about how to get past that one thing. So I'm always tapping into that. So that's the second level. The first level, second level. So first we make it with force energy. Then we make it with our ancestors. The next contract that we're making is with what I call egg bay. Egg Bay is the seat of the heart. That's your homies. Like, that's the people that you tell your deepest, darkest secret to, that you're not going to tell your mama. You're not going to tell your sisters and your brother. You got that person, right? So
Yeah.
then you have a contract with Egg Bay. Going to stay up here in Orun, as we call it in Ifa, to help guide me, and who's going to be born with me to help me. And some of these contracts are very short contracts. Well, I'm gonna come here and challenge you. I just had a recent contract with a gentleman. So after my contract with my twin flame, and we can ease into that. um I started to have some disconnected from my sexuality. I started to feel as though maybe I don't like sex because I wasn't having great sex. I was just like, maybe I just, you
There's
know,
nothing worse than that.
I know. I was like, maybe okay. I'm going back into that monastic view, right? That I'm trying to transcend from, and I'm like, oh, and so I found myself in this state of like, wow, what do I want? I feel like a very juicy, highly sexual person, but I'm not enjoying sex. I'm not enjoying sex. Oshun, and I had been abstinent for a very long time. And then I decided not to be, and started dealing with someone from my past that was reinforcing this message that I didn't like sex. I wasn't enjoying sex with this person. I was like, I'm not, even my yoni started to be like, can you stop? It was like chafe. It wasn't a pleasant experience. So I was retreating again. Oshun sent me this brother, honey. Mm. And I was like, oh, this ain't me. I'm just not calling the right partners to me. I'm not calling the right. This person broke my back, honey. I was like, that contract was 5 days. It was 5 days. But that was the most powerful contract I have had because it taught me that I am still a sexual being, that I still do. I'm just not with the right partners, right? So I'm
Yeah.
grateful for that contract. You can make a contract with the person at the grocery store. Hey, around this time, I'm gonna be practicing patience. I got you. No problem. I'm gonna be the bitch at the cash register that's gonna give you a real hard time, or that moves extra slow when you like, why is this woman ringing up so slow. That's when you're like, this is a contract. I'm in a contract.
Yes.
I asked this person to come to me to teach me patience, ashe. So that's when you can go and go into your breathing and you can practice. This is what real spiritual practice is. When I'm working with you guys with meditation, I'm working with you guys with yoga and journaling. All of that is like the muscle, right? You're
Yeah.
building the muscle. But when you go out in life and you are interacting within your soul contracts, that's the practice.
Yes, it is.
And
It's
so,
remembering all the lessons and remembering to breathe. I think first, first off in most instances, but it's just really interesting how you and I think a lot of my subscribers and my viewers would also really appreciate that sometimes you would meet someone and you would think that there's a part of you that thinks that person was meant to be for me, and they're only there for a season, not for, not for the long term, and they may be scratching their heads and questioning everything. Is it me? Is it something I've done, etc., etc.? When in the majority of instances you agreed to this, you agreed to do this, you agreed to play a part of this role, which is your life, and they were only meant to make a cameo appearance as part of that. But usually that cameo appearance then allows you to grow into a bigger and stronger version of yourself. But you draw that sort of you draw that training out and make it very, very clear as part of your coaching sessions, don't you, pretty much?
yes. And I think, I love that we're having that conversation about love because I think that is the most misunderstood contract. Our romantic love, that's the contract that we least understand. And we have to, it's because we are conditioned to look for things outside of ourselves, right? I always challenge people, if you want to create love, become love. Love is a state of being. It's not a feeling. It's a frequency and a state of being that you have to align to, right? But until you align to that, what we normally do is we are looking for romance based off a need. We're looking for validate love. Show me that love really exists. And we're coming from this very needy state. Well, the problem with that is that when you are in a needy state, um, you're attracting things to you that you have within inside of you. You're never going to be fulfilled. And most lovers, for instance, they're my first twin flame, or my most recent, I would say, twin flame encounter. So let me just back up. Ashe, thank you, Ancestor said too fast. Let's just back up. First of all, I want everyone to be invited to understand that we are all one being in drag. That's number one. So we're all one. Then I want every man and woman, regardless of your gender, you need to know whatever you identify with, them, they, her, whatever. This is not about genderizing. This is a energy conversation. Every being has flowing through them both feminine and masculine energy. Your form may lean on one more than the other. That's fine, but we do have these two energies. Now, I'm going to speak in terms of gender just because it's easier for me, not to dismiss anybody. So I want you to first, in your mind, think about the gender that you identify with. Okay, great. So now that you've done that, if you identify with a feminine gender, a feminine frequency, every other person that you run into is your masculine frequency. It's your masculine frequency. If you identify with a masculine, every feminine that you run into is your feminine frequency. If you understand that, then your twin flame or your soulmate or whatever you want to call it, and those are different things in the science. They're not different things to me. They, to me, it's just the evolution of the same soul. So first you are interacting with your karmic persons to help
Yes.
you be able to run off the karmic energy that is cycling in you. The
Yeah.
next level, once you move past the karmic energy, you move into your soulmate frequency, which is going to be people that it's less about drama and triggers and you trying to figure out these shadow parts of yourself. And now you're moving in towards frequencies of love, but it's still more about you trying to understand how love is within inside of your frequency. And that's
Yeah.
going to be real white picket fencey, and you're going to be
Yes.
with each other. Then you start to evolve into your twin flame assignment, and this is where your love becomes more about the work, not about you understanding love. It becomes about the love that you want to extend out.
Yeah.
I'm not of one of those philosophies, because the more that I study energy, it doesn't make sense, and wholeness, it doesn't make sense to me to say, well, your twin flames are different from your soulmates, are different from your karmic lovers, when it's always just your energy presenting to you to teach you a lesson. So when you understand that, you can come into relationships not with this attachment. Oh, I found somebody that is an object of my affection, that shows me this, and I want to cling to that person forever and ever. And then
Yeah.
when it doesn't work out, then you're like, I'm giving up on love and F love and da, 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 da. You're giving up on yourself. When you give up on love, you're giving up on your ability to come into that state of being and to operate within that frequency. So here is what I tell people: when you are coming into ceremony, you can ascend one or two ways, right? You can ascend through meditation and relationships with friends and families and coworkers, but you're always using relationships to ascend. Please and believe. Okay.
Yeah.
Or you can come into what I heard another practitioner call the love dojo, or what Ram Dass calls is the yoga of relationships, right? Because yoga is about union, it's about bringing yourself into wholeness. And so if you are in relationship, that's the quickest way to bring you into wholeness, because can't nobody trigger you better than another person, honey. That's it. So when
Agreed.
you choose not to engage with your opposite self, okay, with your opposite self, what you are choosing is to stay the same. Now, we are 70 to 80% water, right?
Yeah.
What does water look like when it's not moving? It's the most toxic water. You can't drink water. If you're out and you're surviving out in nature and you want to take a chance on water, you want to go over where the water is running,
Running.
where it's the most
Yeah.
rapid, where there's plants that maybe can hit the moss, they can act like a filter. You got a greater chance of not having dysentery if you drink from that water. If you drink from a still water that's not moving, that's where the flies are. That's where the shit is. That's where it is. So a lot of us are staying in these states of stagnation simply because we're too afraid to be challenged. We don't want somebody to come and show us. We really, what we do, we want to have somebody come into our, not tell us anything about ourselves, just agree with everything that we're doing and not trigger us. Okay, good luck on finding that person, because that's not the contract. It's not.
No, I agree. The contract is to grow, and in order to grow, you need those types of connections where you're butting heads with them in order for you. So obviously, we talked again. It's kind of looping it back around with the old do's and about. The majority of instances, it teaches you about your character and your character flaws. Those relationships, those butting types of relationships, then allow you to really see and work on those character flaws and to grow from those experiences. As painful as those experiences can well be, as we know. Um, but as I was trying to basically say to those of you that probably saw the first half of my reading earlier, these sorts of sessions with coaching sessions with NASA will help you to basically, I call it a recalibration session. It's basically resetting. Something's probably come out somewhere, and it's a case of trying to get everything back into alignment to look at it properly so that you're at a place of balance before you then venture back out to get into another relationship. Because as you said, frequency, so basically what we usually say in the tarot community is like attracts like. So unless you balance out your frequency and you're at a higher vibration, you're not likely to be bringing in anyone of a higher vibration. It's like attracts like.
It is. And I see so many people online, women ain't this and men ain't this and da 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 da. And really all they're talking about is their individual states of mind, their individual
Agreed.
consciousness attracting you who you are. And I can see transactional lovers attract transactional lovers, period. And so if you're sitting in this state of like, oh, women just want me for my money, you just want them for their pussy, period. And that's what it is. So coming in with some type of transaction. I want a woman to do, you have a list of things that you want a woman to do, which is putting out transactional energy. And what you are drawing is women who have that transactional energy. But what you gonna do for me? And so you're interacting with that. I don't really attract people like that. Because I'm not in that state of consciousness anymore. It really is, and even going back to butting heads, okay? Sometimes if that's a part of your karmic cycle, because when you are in a soulmate and twin flame, you're at a point where you're not defensive. And when your lover comes to you and they say, hey, here's something that I'm seeing, da 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 da, you're coming from a state of gratefulness, right? And so then you go to the mirror and you're looking in there and you're breaking down, well, what part of this is my lover trying to express their love language, and which
Yeah.
part of it is that person, really seeing something that in my subconscious and in my shadow that I can't see. And that's where radical self accountability. That's why I can't be with a lover who lies to me, because if you can't be honest and vulnerable, then we can't help each other, right? We're going to create this certain type of energy. And so when we go again, we're going through karmic lovers. So yesterday I had the pleasure of I went to have lunch outside, and I was like, I hope that something comes up where I could talk about this couple. And here you go, Ashe, yo, this is great. So there's a couple. This woman is gorgeous. She just looks like, she looks like the epitome of what society says is beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Like, we know we gorgeous and fine, honey. We know we are energy. But society has this look thin, fair skin, they have this thing. And she checked all of the boxes. She was gorgeous. I would say the gentleman that she was sitting across, as far as physical attractiveness, it wasn't really equal there. You know what I'm saying? He was all right. He was okay. But this woman was gorgeous. She spent the entire lunch, to the point where I was like, why did I not bring my headphones and spirits? Because I want you to listen. It was agitating to me because she spent the entire lunch talking about, I haven't seen you in. Okay, so first it started off where he was lecturing her because she asked him, what are we going to do after this? Why are you asking me what we going to do after this? And da, 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 da. And then she spent that entire hour fussing at him about, you don't want to spend time with me. You didn't even give me a compliment. And he's clearly frustrated. He's frustrated and he's shut down. Now he looking on her phone and she like, I guess we're not going nowhere. You don't want to tell me where we go. And I was thinking, if in a perfect world, I want to grab this woman and say, if you have to articulate to this person how to treat you, this
Yeah.
is a karmic lover. And your lesson is, are you strong enough to walk away? Do you love yourself? Like, I can think of my first husband who he thinks he's my, he was like, yeah, I'm your twin flame. I was thinking, nowhere
Nuh-uh.
near. No, you are karmic like hell, honey. I haven't even gotten to soulmate land yet, honey. No. And so I think about even Chiron, the wounded warrior. You know a little bit of
I know
like
about Chiron, yeah.
that's the wounded warrior here to teach you something. And my ex-husband is in that sign of that wounded warrior. It took me 18 years to learn what I should have learned well into our dating experience. I could have been experienced soulmate lovers, and I could have probably been in a twin flame marriage if I would have stopped that, because my job in that relationship was for me to speak up. He and I actually had a conversation, and he was like, we were talking about karma and stuff like that. And he was like, well, it's because of you I got divorced. I said, well, honey, that wasn't my contract. Your contract was to make sure, because all of your bloodline got divorces. My bloodline didn't have divorces. Ain't nobody divorced like that in my bloodline. That wasn't my contract. His contract was to find kindness and to balance out those areas of his life so that his marriage would be sustained. My contract was for me to speak up, for me to be my authentic self, for me to not let really unhusband like behaviors exist in my family. And I didn't do that until the very end. And by then I have been so
Yeah.
traumatized that there was no love for me to build on. So if you are in a relationship, man or female, and you are in a toxic relationship, that is not your soul. It is your soul mate, because we're all
But
soul, but that's
it's
your
not a twin
karmic.
flame. I was going to say it's not a twin flame. And that's one of the things which I've mentioned on the channel, that a twin flame relationship is not toxic. So if it is toxic, or your person's narcissistic in some way, they try you. Your twin flame tries you, definitely, but they try you to help you to grow, but then don't traumatize you, though.
Yes.
So that is the main
A different
difference.
type of pressure, like I can think of my twin flame when he and I, for him, I learned how to love. I learned how to love, and it was a very calm, and it was so calm that, and that's a part of the twin flame too, because when you come into your twin flame, if you don't have those healed parts of yourself, it's too much. You have to separate and be separate from each other until you learn how to be wholeness. And then we live in a free will society. So twin flame is a frequency. So we have to be careful not to attach it to a specific person. We're all avatars and we're puppets here. I know that I am in twin flame assignment. I know that my next partner is a twin flame assignment. I'm not attached to the body anymore, but I know what I'm supposed to learn. I connect with my twin flame in my altar. But if you are in a toxic, where that person is not your twin flame would never not want you to be fully themselves, because they are you. And so by inhibiting you, they are thereby inhibiting themselves. So they need to
Yeah.
come in with that energy. So if you are in a toxic karmic relationship, the first thing that I really advise you to do is check into your contract. What am I supposed to be learning here? Okay. And you learn it. That other person can be in karmic cycles all they want. They'll just be in one karmic, but that doesn't mean that you have to stay there. You can get out of karmic toxic relationships, and depending how deep your shadow is, and depending on how dedicated you are to this work, you may meet a karmic lover several times. Here's the thing: karmic lover, soulmate lover, twin flame lover, it all starts the same. It all starts with this deep connection that you cannot explain. I can't explain why this person is like, got me all, oh my God. It all starts that way.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it confusing, because you meet this person and you're like, I have had karmic lovers and I have done our charts, and our astrological charts are like past lover, extraordinary. And then it'll say, in order for y'all to work, these are the things that need to be worked out. Now, when I meet somebody that gets my heart flutters, and because I am on twin flame assignment, that also doesn't happen that often. And so that's also when you're in karmic lovers, a lot of people start lighting your heart up. It's somebody show up that has a need, and you just like, oh. I remember after my ex, I still was in this very this clouded mindset or whatever. And I met this little young boy, and felt this soulmate connection to this person that I couldn't explain. He was so toxic, Michelle. He was another version of my husband. He was another
Wow.
version, he was a version of my grandmother. But at that time, what I wanted from my husband was for him to be a business partner. I wanted him to partner with me in business. And this is what I thought I still want that, but this is what I was like deeply needing. This dude was smart. He was good in business. He made me my first 4 figures. And so I was like, oh my God, he's godsend. Not to mention, he was still highly critical. He was still he was just mean. He was another version of my husband. And so I was like, well, thank God he was smart enough to like be like, no, I don't, I'm moving on, because I still wasn't smart enough at that point to be tapped in. And
Yeah.
so you have to be kind of tapped into like, what is this person trying to teach me about myself? How can I master that within me and my soul? How can we master that? And then and to detach from time. Okay, every
Yeah.
lover is not supposed to be in your life your entire life. That is not how this thing works. So like, this is why the universe really brings things to people that don't have attachment, because they will allow people to come and go. Because the greatest sin, when you look up the etymology of the word sin, it is simply missing the mark.
Yeah.
We are all here on a grid, and we all are supposed to be at certain places at certain times. And when we are connected with our soul, that our soul says it's time to go. But fear tells you, I don't want to be in this bed. This is why I stayed in my marriage for so long, even though I was so unhappy, is because I had convinced myself that I couldn't be alone, that I didn't want to be without partnership. And that caused me to stay in those states. And we have to be able to release that so we can draw to us what is for us.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It's going past all of it's what I usually like to call shadows. Things that are hidden, things that you probably didn't even realize were there until you meet a particular partner who triggers something in you to heal. But once you've done that healing, then it's drawing to you the person that is of a higher frequency than the one that you were dating before then, in essence. But again, to for those of you who will be watching, this is the sort of work that you do on a regular basis, isn't it? Where
Yeah,
you're working with people to work on some of those triggers and things that are bothering them. Because I remember when I had my very first session with you, and you asked me to work on a journal, creating like a little. You asked me to write a letter to someone who I didn't like, and to and to reevaluate after sleeping on it and then coming back to it, how makes me feel, or how that made me feel, and what was missing in terms of what I should have said during that time, or what was it that I actually wanted which I couldn't relay at that time. So it was really, really useful and a helpful session for me to look at it outside of the 3D space, actually, in truth, because in a lot of instances, and I'm sure a lot of the people who are watching today can relate, we're caught up in the 3D of it all. Staying in a marriage for way too long, it in the majority of instances, it will be our own wounds, shadows. It will be other people's influences, could be family, could be friends. It's the stigmas attached to it. All of it is all constructs of the 3D. Once you breach past all of that and realize that actually these are not my rules, then you can then kind of grow past that and finds that strength to find those better connections, find those people who are better aligned to you. And it doesn't have to be romantic, it can apply to platonic relationships as well, I
Yeah, I
feel.
always tell people, like, be most of us are not really ready for a relationship. We really aren't. We want someone to share our life with. We know inherently that, we want that, and we want to create this life. Most of us are really not ready to engage a relationship at that level. And so I feel as though you're ready to engage in relationships when first you have, in April with the Ancestral Healing Circle, we're going to be doing a lot of work behind self-love, because right now the planets are supporting relationships in all forms, right? And we put so much focus on romantic relationships. And if we don't have a romantic relationship, then we isolate ourselves, right?
Agreed.
Relationship, love, in order for us to understand how to become love, we have to become love. We first, I say love chases me. Like, I don't chase love, honey. Love, I be like this on, I'll be like, I have to, and when I it now and be like, hey, because I've become the thing that everybody wants. And that's what you do. You become love. And don't do it from an ego standpoint, well, I'm gonna come love so everybody wants me. No, you come love so you can become whole again. And then the byproduct of wholeness is you attract other people to you that are whole as well. And that's what you really want to be able to do. So we can do that by first just falling in love with ourselves, because like you said, the shadow is created when we run into people and places that tell us that we can't be who we are. And then I can't do that then. Well, guess what? That shadow gets fed. We forget about those experiences, but that shadow is still like really affecting our actions, our beliefs, and everything that we have. So first of all, we have to look that shadow in the face and be like, no, I love that. I remember, my first sexual shame experience, which a lot of us in the diaspora have a lot of sexual shame that lives within our root chakra energy, which is why we have problems creating and connecting with others. And I can remember as a little girl, I was maybe 4 or 5, child, and I was looking at my yoni, and I wasn't playing with myself. I was more like, just mapping it out. What is this? I never knew what this was. And my grandmother came in and she gave me a spanking for it. And so that was my first subconscious, because 0 to 7, you have no frontal lobe. You don't, you're literally a tape recorder, pupiling. And so that was my first sexual experience. No wonder sex became something that is not something of my own. So this is why I had a lot of sexual trauma and a lot of sexual issues in my life. And so we have to do this shadow work. A sexual shadow was created at that point, a miasma, as we call it, which then creates herpes. Herpes is a miasma that's created out of sexual shame. Okay. It creates all of these different diseases in our body because this shadow, you got to deal with that shit. So the first thing that we're going to be doing all through April is we're going to be doing a lot of shadow work and a lot of inner child work, because we have to fall in love with those parts of ourselves that other people said wasn't okay. And what we have to say is that wasn't okay for them, but it is okay for me. So when you come into this deep self-love, and now you're like, no, there's no ugly parts of myself. There's no parts of myself that I need to hide. That's bullshit. What am I talking about? I'm great. I'm fantastic. I'm highly sexual. This is what I'm supposed to be for me. Then the self-love becomes to emanate out. The next level is connect with community,
Yeah.
connect with others, learn how to navigate yourself around community. How can I go? How can I practice being my authentic and unapologetic self with the people around me who say that they love me? What's going to happen is you're going to find out those people who really, really loved you, and you're going to find out the people who don't. And then I hear social media, your family never supports you. And it's, it's okay. Okay. Rejection is protection. Let
Yes.
everybody fall off that does not allow you, don't even want to be in that frequency. When you've reached that point, I know who I am. I know how to be myself around others without them bothering me or me second guessing who I am. Then, my loves, that is when you can now enter into the love dojo and you can begin to come together with that other person. Both people being their sovereign, independent selves, but making a decision to do this together. That is
Yeah.
when shit gets juicy. Most people skip the self love, they skip community, they isolate themselves until some person shows up, and then they get upset when that person doesn't exhibit the things that they want to exhibit.
That they wanted, exactly. I do find I see it quite a lot, to be honest, where people either, that's the best case scenario that you described, where there are some people that pull away and they spend some time on their own. There are other people that don't even do that. It's an accumulation of wounds which hasn't been healed, and then they are waiting or they are looking for that next person to come in, and then there'll be bewilderment as to why that connection also kind of, crashes and burns, without realizing, well, actually, no, there is a bit of time needed to heal from those past wounds, as well as for you, as you say, with the self love, it's realizing that you are good enough, and to ignore what other people say as well. But it's the rejection is protection is the biggest one for me. Things that are no longer in your life, it's for a reason, and it's usually for your greatest good, to
It's
be
all
honest.
always for your greatest good. I say relationships, no matter what form you run into them with, they are there for you to either embrace something in yourself that you need to embrace, or to release something that needs to be released. And so whenever I come into relationship with anybody, be it you, be it anybody, I'm always in a state of learning, because even you and I are one being. You're me and I'm you, right? And so
Yeah.
if we come into it with that standpoint, you never abuse others, you never take advantage of others, and that's when you can have your greatest level of work, because you can be like, we're reflecting. One of Oshun's main tools that she works with is the mirror. And for so long, I always thought that it's because she's beautiful, right? And she's gorgeous,
Yes.
about vanity, but the mirror is self-reflection. That's what it is. And Oshun has radical self-accountability. She has radical self-accountability. And I have found that when I come out of victim mode and say, oh, this person did this to me. And that's why that letter helps, because when you can look at somebody that you're upset with and you can get all of your words out, sit on it, and then go back to that letter and read it as the soul is communicating with you. Like, you can be like, oh shit, my soul was basically trying to tell me that I need something. So whenever you are reached into a lover, and you are trying to attract a lover to fulfill a need in you, that relationship will always let you down, because that relationship came to you for the purpose to show you that you can't get that from somebody else. So you're not going to get it.
Agreed, it has to come from you. So going back to the example of the couple that you saw the other day, he wasn't fulfilling her needs, and she was trying to talk to him for hours to try to get that. um I think, unfortunately, that with scenarios like that, she will either remain in that situation for a very, very long time, until either he completely breaks her, or he gets up and walks away.
Totally uninterested in what she was. He was not. He wasn't listening to her from no stretch of the imagination, child. So
But it again, like you said, absolutely beautiful girl,
Right.
But again, there was shadows, there's wounds that she needed to look at. But yeah, like you said, in relation to Oshun with the mirror, it's a lot of self-reflection, and not just looking at yourself saying, hey, I'm beautiful. It's looking at yourself and your behavior. It's your characters, it's who you are and how you portray yourself to others. um but yeah, it is. It's absolutely. To be honest, there is still so there's still so much that we could talk about. You know, even touching on Ifa, going back to that with the different. Do you know the different systems? So you touched on Lukumi as one, and then there's Isheshe as another. I'm just trying to make sure that I get everything in so that so that there's enough there that everyone knows. Oh, I just want to make sure that we do not forget this as well. Do you want to tell everyone about your new show?
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. And Michelle, let me tell you something. This partnership is turning into something even greater than what I was expecting. I had a meeting with the CEO on Friday, what's today, Saturday, on yesterday, and this partnership is amazing. So I have a show that is on 4TV Hub. 4TV Hub is a subscription base, and you can sign up for free. Some of the shows on there is per view, and some you can pay to get. But you can go ahead, and this is content specifically for people in Africa and of African descent within the diaspora, right? And so I've come up with this show called Decolonizing the Wisdom of Your Ancestors. We could do this all day because colonization has really affected every area of our consciousness. It really is. And the greatest area that has affected us is this lack of diversity. Like we depreciate diversity. And so decolonizing the wisdom of your ancestors is about looking at all of those areas in which colonization has calcified us to true reality. So the first episode is with my Ianifa, Yeye Louisa Tish, and we are talking specifically about decolonizing Ifa. Ifa is heavily colonized, and I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate DMs and all this other kind of shit, which I'm okay. I've learned to just be like, oh, it's okay. But right now, Ifa is highly colonized. I saw this one practitioner coming on talking about Santeria is not real and Isheshe is the only leg of Ifa and all of this. Here's how I feel about it. I don't need to regulate Ifa and Orisha. Like if I'm sitting here and I'm saying, well, Ifa, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, I am becoming Ifa. Like I'm becoming the lawmaker. And we have to be very careful with that. There is nothing in this world happen without Olodumare. Without it's just not going to happen. Okay, so even how Ifa has laid out and turned into Shango spiritual Baptist, Santeria, Candomblé, just all of these different legs of Ifa. Ifa knows what it's doing. I don't regulate Ifa and Orisha. That's not my job to do that. If your ancestors led you to Santeria, then damn it, you better do that shit to the letter and you better learn it and get into it. If they send you to Shango Baptist, that's go ahead and do that. Candomblé, Lukumi, Isheshe. I actually don't claim a set. And so when people come to me and they ask me, oh, oh, are you Isheshe? What are you? I'm Ifa. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't get into all of those different legs because
It all sits under the same umbrella in essence. It's just slight nuances in how it's practiced,
and
but it's all under the same.
even in those legs, the way Ifa is structured, it is structured off of lineage. It is structured off of lineage. The way Yeye Tis is teaching us things may not, it's definitely not like a lot of other Elays. My job is not to worry about what these other Elays is doing. My job is I chose her to be my spiritual teacher. And so I get to decide, who my teachers are and how I choose to express this tradition. Ifa has become too much. It's too laden in ego. It's too laden in, when somebody comes to me, I have very little respect very little respect when someone comes to me and they're regurgitating all of their initiations, all of their, I got this and I got this and I got this. And to me, I'm like, Ifa told me I needed like a couple of Elekes and Ocha. And so elevations are there to protect you. So when you coming out with a whole bunch of elevations, to me, that means that you into this tradition way before you are supposed to. You over here getting shit that you need to fix your character. Ifa is about character development. Iwa Pele. Okay, even the third eye in Ifa is called Iwaju. That's why my business is called Iwaju Life Center.
Yeah.
It is the eye of character. It is the way. So when I am looking at you and you got 35 Alekes on, you got Egun Alekes, Oba Alekes, you got Olokun Alekes, you got your hand to Ifa, you got your warriors, you got all of this shit, and you still robbing people, you
Mm.
still shutting people off from the tradition, you're still not operating in love, you are not acting in accordance with the principles of this tradition, period. And so then it gets down to, well, if my consciousness is here and I'm operating on high levels of character, I'm operating on high levels of concepts within this tradition, and then I come to you, I'm not obligated. My obligation ceases to connect with you. Now I can choose to bow to that Orisha within you. But here's the thing, Orisha have both good sides and they have
Yeah.
bad side. And so if you a lot of time, these Babalaos and Ias are putting these Orisha on people's heads that are not, people come to me and they're like, I want to know who my Orisha are. I'm like, let's get with your ancestors. I can know who your Orisha is. I know who your Orisha is. I'm like, but I don't feel like it's relevant because really the Orishas
Um,
cannot do shit for you that your Ori does not ordain. Okay. So if you are not tapped into your Ori and working with your ancestors to be able to come to fruition, you could call on Oshun all she wants to, and your Ori will say, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. I don't care how many candles she burned. That is not within her destiny, no ma'am. And then you get mad at Oshun, you get mad at your Orisha, and then you throw I have family members thrown
mm.
their warriors out, thrown their Orishas out, not caring for their Elekes. All right, well, that's fine, but this is what happens when people come into this tradition and they don't learn as they are supposed to. They get caught. I had a student one time and she was dressing up like Oshun and taking pictures out by the river. And I just sent her a little text message and I was like, homie, I'm just saying you might not want to do that. And she pushed back. I know what I'm doing. Da 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 da. I'm like, all right. And her life is not improving. You do not want to bring on Oshun energy when it's out of balance, honey. Oshun will destroy your life from the
I,
inside out. It
I've,
really
I've heard about this, and it's not just Oshu. I think it's the majority. It's all of the Orishas. If
is.
yeah, it's all of the Orishas. It's without proper knowledge or research or looking into it, because and we discussed this early doors, where a lot of people who find or identify with Eva, it's usually because of the Orishas. So people are so desperate to know who's my head Orisha, who is it that is the one that's protecting me and following me, etc., etc. But we should really, I think, number one, pretty much it's all of the Orishas. It's not just that one. And two, especially if you are working with one specific Orisha, if you're not completing a bow, you're not doing all of the necessary things in terms of, you know, um,
Honey,
communicating.
you gonna catch that nasty side. Yep. Nasty side
Exactly.
of Ogun is isolation. So and temper. So whenever if you are on the in the good in the Irie side, so it's Irie and Eb. The Irie side of Ogun is kindness, gentleness, it's temperament, it's balance, it's stability. The Eb side of Ogun energy is you got a hot ass temper. You go to war. One of the first Alekes that I needed to get was my Ogun Alekes because I popped off. Popped off. If you want to go to war, you simply needed to call me. You didn't even have to give me a reason. And that's how Ogun energy is. You don't get Ogun just be like, is it a fight somewhere? He don't even ask. He just go like, I'm ready to go. That's so you have to balance that energy. Yemoya energy on the EB side is over nurturing, over giving, not loving yourself, just giving, 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 giving until you just about to shrivel up. Oya's energy is constantly cutting people off, walking away before your time, destroying shit, that don't need to be destroyed. It's that self-sabotage energy. If you have EB side of Shango, you're going to be a womanizer. You're going to have this hot temper type energy. There's this whole Odu where Shango came to some friends' party, their wedding. He came to their wedding, and Shango is Oba. He's the king, right? He is the king. That's why him and Ogun,
They're usually at, yeah, loggerheads, aren't they?
dude, I'm the king. Shango is like, come on, player, I'm Oba, I'm the king. So he goes into this wedding. It's in Odu, and that he looks and there's no wine left. He kills everybody. He kills everybody.
I heard about this. Yeah.
And these are his friends. These are people that he loved, and because they had drunk all the wine, he killed everybody. And the crazy thing, the dude was like hours late to the party. Like, how you gonna be late to the party and then everybody drink and then you kill everybody at the wedding party? Like, that's a day where you glad you left the wedding early, honey. You be like, oh, glad I left the wedding early. But this is also why we always make sure that we have wine available in the house at all time. It's these little things that we do within the tradition that we don't really know why. But that's the EB side of Shango. Shango is hot tempered. He's overly passionate. He pops off and he loves the hoes. Okay, that's So when you have a guy who has Shango energy, when I meet a guy, his Orisha is immediately connecting with me because I'm looking at it, and I also know that I'm Shango's wife. So if you come to me and you don't have any Shango energy and you good or bad, I already know, okay, well, what's this? Because you ain't my man. So knowing this and living this life, it gives you a certain type of certainty that you can be able to lean on. And yes, everybody loves the Orisha, but they don't love Ifa. And that's because Ifa has become, I had a guy one time,
Demonized.
it's very demonized. I had this guy, and when I was on the dating apps, which I'm not, and I was on this dating app, and we were hitting it off. I was like, "Oh, this guy's kind of cool." And then he said he was from Nigeria, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I practice E5." He literally was like, "If you practice E5, we don't need to talk no more. Have a good life." I was like, "Damn."
Whoa.
And we were having a good ass conversation, and there was a possibility of at least a friendship there. He wasn't my mate, but it was a possibility of friendship. Totally, just because of E5, because of the conditioning that he received. And frankly, some E5 practitioners they're ripping people off, they're doing shady stuff, and this is going to be stopped. And you're seeing Ifa balance itself and really eliminate people that are operating in this standpoint. I would say if you are looking for a spiritual mentor within this tradition, I cannot yet take on godchildren until I get my final Ocha, but as a spiritual mentor. So some people can be spiritual mentors. Some people can actually take on godchildren. When that happens, you want to look for someone that is the highest level of character. That when you are sitting there, I want you to look. Even the first Ianifa that I was, or the Ia that I was under, I saw a lot of pitting against that was happening in the Ile, or this person would speak very negatively about someone else in the Ile, or even tell me, well, here, I'm going to invite you here, but don't tell this other person that I invited you here. And, at the level of consciousness where I was at, I was like, okay, but that's poor character. So you have to really be able to think about, what type of person do I want to become? And then and get under a spiritual teacher who you can emulate their points of character. This is why I believe that the ancestral healing circle is growing to the point that it's growing, because I emanate love, truth, and character. Now, that always doesn't fit well with the people that initially come to me. And so I like to put, like I said, I'm dropping some people. I'm about to email some people now and be like, I'm going to drop you and I love you. And when you're ready to fully engage, let's go. I really only want people that are that are thirsty for the work of changing their consciousness and becoming better. I had a girl who I was talking to, lots of things going on, and I said to her, look, I'm gonna tell you point blank, period. If you want to come into coaching with me, you're gonna this is gonna have to stop. And I'm literally downloading from the ancestors, not me. I'm downloading from the ancestors who, and I let this person know, and they politely decline. No, thank you. That's fine. If you're not ready, I'm telling y'all, look into the camera. If
Mm.
y'all don't want to hear the truth, and you do not want to change, honey, just enjoy this free content.
You keep it, the thing is, you do keep it 100. You keep it 100. So you do, what you see is what you get, really. And that's what and I've always said this, just generally, even in relationships, platonic or romantic, just say things as you mean it, and just be honest, and which you are both, unashamedly. Unashamedly.
I can't, because my job will get. I am literally the voice of the ancestors, and Ifa. Literally, this throat. I had a practitioner do Reiki on me, and she was like, "Ooh, your throat is so hot. Shango lives in my throat. Like, I'm here to talk. I'm here to get this energy out, right?" And so the moment that the ancestors whisper something to me, or your soul whispers something to me, and I'm afraid to say it, that that creates a block in my pineal gland, and that creates channeling issues. I
Yeah.
can't, I say, people, whether you come to me and you love me, or whether you come to me and I irk you, I'm always going, I can't change even for the people that I love. Because the moment that I start like, oh, I love Michelle and she's so powerful and she's so great, but the ancestors, our community, I gotta tell this person that they're out of alignment or they're not operating. Like, if I start being like, oh, you know, then the ancestors are no longer going to choose me. They're not going to choose me. The ancestors don't have a physical voice, right? They
Right.
speak through the body, they speak through the heart, they speak through dreams, they speak through nature. And so when we are closed in that way, then we need ancestor channelers, ancestor mediums to be able to speak. The ancestors want to fix what they did wrong. They did
Yes.
not complete, some of them did not complete their cycles. And so they need people like me to speak the truth. And so, yes, sometimes that looks like, I gotta stop you there. And when you get to a certain part of coaching, when you get to a certain level, then I really become intolerant. I have some clients that I'm like, no, I'm not going to allow you to say that. I'm not going to allow you to think that. I'm not going to allow. I'll be like this because you're going down a way. Because here's the thing that Ifa teaches, and this is the important thing, and we can end on this and really tie it up in a beautiful, beautiful bow. Consciousness creates reality. Reality does not create consciousness. What you think, what you speak is absolutely creating your existence. You are creating it. If your life is chaotic, I guarantee your mind and your heart and your body is chaotic and out of balance. That's period. I can look at you and I can tell you what is your life. Your life tells me where your consciousness is. And so
Mm.
until we stop being a victim to reality, until we stop that, then we are going to continue to play out these karmic cycles over and over again. We must identify what we want. And so when you come up to a certain level of awareness with me, it is my duty not to allow you as your guide to create states that you do not want to be in. Everybody hear me loud and clear. If you want your life to change, the illusion of personality is personal reality. Okay. Do not over identify with who you are, because I guarantee you will be a different person I grow 1% every day. I am not the same Nasa that I was last month, and I'm not going to be the same Nasa that I am right now next month. And if I am, check me, boo. Check me. Because I'm staying in stagnated states. So be open to change, detach from the outcome, and do not speak your work. And it's the hardest work. And this is the work that most people fail at, because it's the hardest, but it's the easiest. All you literally have to do is no longer allow, when a thought comes in, Eshu Odada is offering you a choice. You can either choose death by continuing to, and we say this in Deuteronomy. Everybody is always like, oh, God is this and God is that. Deuteronomy clears the whole thing up. Source energy, what we call God, says, I place before you life and death, blessings and cursings. And then, in case we are confused, Spirit says, choose life. And so every thought that comes into your mind, every emotion that you feel, you literally are at the crossroads with Eshu. And you are making a decision at that point. I can follow these old paradigms of thought frequency that keep me in this chaotic life, or I can choose to do something else. You have a powerful imagination. Your imagination and intuition are a part of your 6 higher faculties. Do not, under any form or stretch of imagination, use your imagination for fear. It is a improper use of the imagination faculty. So whenever those pictures come into your head and those sensations come into your body that are trying to remind you of these shadows, that are trying to keep you in this stuck paradigm, which is the ego loves to solve problems, so it loves to create them. Choose a different way. And this is what I help people do. I help people choose a different way through 3 primary ways. Number 1, subconscious reprogramming. 95% of what you do in your life is because of the subconscious. You got to dig through that sucker, pull out those old ancestral and past life and current life messages that keep you stuck. You have to understand your energy. We spend so much time on the outside of our physical body. We don't even know how the brain works. We don't know how the heart works. We don't know how the inside works. And we definitely don't know about our energy anatomy, which is our true self. Our energy anatomy is what drives the spaceship. And so everything happens in your energy field. When I see somebody struggling with their weight in physical form, I just know they've stuffed themselves in the energy form. And your energy body is always going to match your physical form. Period. That's how it works. That's why when people are suffering from addictions and food, I say, work with your soul first. Don't even worry about cleaning up your diet first. It's not going to work. Okay. Work with your soul. See what your soul, what are you trying to express? What do you want to get out? What am I shoving and I'm eating to hide the message that you are trying to give me? But yes, everybody, consciousness creates reality. Reality does not create consciousness.
That is absolutely beautiful. And honestly, Iya, thank you so much for joining me on the channel. and on the podcast. Um, I will update the descriptions tab. I'll probably hit you up for anything else, books and things which we can include within the description tab. Check her out on. Do you want to explain the name of your channel?
Absolutely. And please have me on again, because
Of course, I will.
these individual topics alone, like we could talk about twin flames
Oh,
for 2 hours, we could talk about Orisha for 2 hours, like we could talk about each one of these things. So I love that we kind of float through, because it does show the whole, how you really do have to bring all of it together in order to bring yourself to wholeness. But if anybody wants to learn more about me, you simply need to go to my website, nasabawa.com. All of it is there. And also, I have added a free level to the Ancestral Healing Circle, okay, and a $10 level. I'm trying to get people where they are, and kind of have them flow through these levels as they can. So, however, I am not, my network is not a Facebook group, okay? Do not join the free version of Ancestral Healing Circle if you are not going to engage, if you are not, if you're going to be a bystander. And I love how I can go in there and I will drop people from there as well, because I really am, you guys, wealth is in each other.
yes.
And your dreams cannot be discovered without community. So many people are suffering right now because they don't understand community, and they're isolating themselves from people. And so when I see people come into my group that still has an isolation mentality, I know that they're not ready for the group yet, because I want people that are there to, like, I can help. Here's how I need help, and here's how I can give help to others. That is the type of community I'm building. So if you want to connect with me, go to nasabawa.com. I'll let Michelle put the link in the description.
Well,
Get a laser session, get a message from the ancestors, join the free part of the Ancestral Healing Circle and learn, and then we can get into coaching. Do not get into my coaching sessions if you are not ready to change, okay? Because this is not about money to me. I will refund your money back to you and send you along your way, okay? Because I'm not here for people that don't want to make changes. I'm here for people who want to make change. If you are sitting in a space where you are feeling deeply unfulfilled or deeply lost, and you just don't know what's going on, then give me a call. Let's talk. Let's get this work. nasabawa.com.
brilliant. Thank you so much again. And yeah, let's get the conversation popping. So if anyone has any comments, add it. NASA, I'll let you know.
Yeah, let's schedule something
What
live, mommy. Let's schedule something live. I know we're on two.
what I know it was
Yeah, let's
very
figure
nice.
out one. And I saw YouTube, they have like a go live together, but we could also do that on StreamYard too.
I was going to say whichever works for you. So honestly, we do need to do this again, but I think you are right. We will compartmentalize
Yeah.
each of the sections, because although we've got a little bit of a flavor of all of the little pieces of work that you are doing, it's nowhere near as granular as we were as people. There's a lot that Ia does on her platform. So definitely we'll do another one. You contact me, let me know when you are available next, and then we'll plan the next one.
Yeah, let's plan the next one. Let's get people on live. We can both have our cards out, and let's
That's what I wanted to do as part of this one. Do you know, like the card of the day, or the messages to
go
those who are there.
ahead and pull a card. I saw you messing around with your Akashic record deck. You have your Akashic
Did you?
still on?
I was using it
Yeah.
earlier.
Let's go ahead and let's pull a card. We'll both use the same deck, and we'll close. I'm actually my next meeting is at 2:30. I'm actually meeting about my tarot deck that I'm making. That's going to be
Ah,
I'm meeting with the artist, so that should be exciting. Okay, so 3 cards fell out. Which one do you want me? All right, so this one. All right. Oh, I love this. I love this.
this is what I wanted to do, and I think we'll do it next time as well. Is we will start off the reading, or start off with a mini reading, for those who are joining the channel, and then we'll go into the main detail, I think.
Yes. All right. So my card pull came out first. Do you want to get your card first, or do you want
I
me?
have a what? So if you pull 3.
Well, 3 fell out, and then I asked the ancestors which one, and so I've got it narrowed down to 1.
Okay, so I've pulled 3 out anyway. So we've got number 17, which is the Lookout.
Ah, girl, that card showed up for me yesterday. I love that lookout card.
I know it's basically it's warnings, but it's not as bad as it looks with the carnage that is sat around it. Then we have got the Muse.
I love the Muse. I love that card. Yes.
Then we have the Two of Forces, the Willow. And at the bottom of the deck, which I feel may be quite poignant for those of you who are still watching at this point, Fated Meeting.
Oh, I received that. I'm ready for my fated meeting, honey. I love
So, which card did you pull out?
So I love all those cards because I feel like all of it ties into the one card that I pulled, right? So it is about fated meetings. I feel like that fated meeting card is really about the fated meeting with the ancestors in your soul. So I think that's so good to be able to connect with that. For me, what came up was the one of scroll is the one that I am and which is
On track.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think this is really definitely a great message. I'm gonna read the the special note and the Akashic force there because I think it's so important. Special note, whether this card is upright or reversed, imagine yourself stepping back through the stone archway of the station into the adjacent card, which was the Magician. It was the adjacent card was will, wisdom, and mind. Will, wisdom, and mind. And that's really what we're talking about.
Yeah, today.
It
That's
really
what we've been covering today.
been covering that. It said this is the waiting room for your train where you prepare for your journey. The information there can help you be on track. So really connecting to your divine will, your wisdom. That's even like feminine energy is wisdom. Her name is Sophia, and really tapping into your mind. And this is 20 as well, which is all about intuition. So it says, take a deep breath and say, I'm back on track. Feel the clarity of the declaration and let the energy fill you as the state of readiness moves you through. Sense just one simple action that will realign you with your purpose. And that's what I will say today is like, we've talked about a lot of things, everybody. And I want you to find the one thing that you can put into action that will get you back into alignment with your purpose and your true self. That's a great reading. I think that's awesome.
It is. It's absolutely beautiful and fitting. So on that note, thank you again, Iya, and I will we'll set something up again. Still leave comments, but we'll set up a live session so that everybody can participate and be part of the conversation.
Yeah, we'll bring our 2 audiences together and just have a grand old. So yeah, we'll get that on the calendar for you guys. And in the meantime, email Michelle, communicate with her, communicate with me, and together we will get you on track.
Yay. All right. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.